Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. My name's Brian, and we talk about Blu-rays here. And this is sort of continuing my previous Kino video from yesterday. You can go back and look at that one, where I touched on some 4Ks and started to touch on some of the reissues that Kino's been doing. Again, I will reiterate, I'm not 100% sure that all the extras are identical to the previous versions, but it seems to me that these are reissues with slipcases, updating some titles that came out earlier on in Kino Lorber's history. Kino Lorber Studio Classics, that is. So we'll start with horror and Burnt Offerings. Burnt Offerings from 1976. And this one is a blast. This one is kind of nuts. Has a really good cast. And, comes in the wake. I want to say, does this beat Amityville Horror? Because it's right around that time. And I forget when Amityville Horror came out. But it feels like there's a bunch. I mean, there's also things like The Omen and such in the zeitgeist that are pushing this sort of, I don't want to say prestige horror, but it's like in the 70s we're getting a few. So Amityville 1 comes out in 79. So this is actually before Amityville 1. And then I want to say The Omen. When did The Omen come out? Is The Omen before 76? Yeah, The Omen is 76. So I don't know. It feels like it's the zeitgeist, happening. I mean, maybe it goes back as far as Rosemary's Baby, showing that a studio horror picture could make some money. But The Omen was a big hit in 76. And so this comes out. I don't know if it comes out before or after, but regardless, if it comes out the same year, it's hard to know if it could be an influence or if it or what. But this one is fascinating because it has, as you can see, Karen Black, Oliver Reed, Bette Davis. That's just the beginning of the cast. You also have Burgess Meredith, Lee Montgomery, Dub Taylor. Dub Taylor didn't do a lot of horror movies. Mr. Hubba Bubba Bubblegum was in westerns, to the end of the day, but not a ton of horror films. Evil Has a New Home. Step inside a vacation house of horror in this terrifying thriller that does for summer homes what Jaws did for a dip in the surf. Karen Black, Oliver Reed, and Bette Davis star in this riveting haunted house chiller that delivers hidden terrors mounting creepily as the film builds to a climax of pulverizing fright. Marion, that's Karen Black, and Ben, that's Oliver Reed, find it hard to believe that for only $900 they've rented a sprawling country mansion for the entire summer. Folks, if you can rent a country mansion for $900 in 1976, there's a problem. But as they settle into their isolated estate with their son, Lee Montgomery, from Ben, he's the little kid in the Mouse movie Ben, but I know him from Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Like, he's the, blue-collar kid that ends up dancing with Sarah Jessica Parker. That's where I always remember him from. But he's in a ton of stuff. And Ben's aunt, that's Bette Davis, find themselves surrounded by an evil, hypnotic, living presence that feeds on torture, fear, and murder. The stellar cast includes Burgess Meredith, Eileen Eckhart, Dub Taylor. Oh, he was in Gator. Okay, so he did do some Burt Reynolds stuff, I guess, maybe. Anthony James, co-written, produced, and directed by horror legend Dan Curtis, who, of course, did the Night Stalker, Night Strangler, and then did he originate Kolchak, I guess? And then the Trilogy of Terror. Dan Curtis did a ton of stuff in the 70s. He was sort of the ruler of 70s horror TV movies. I forgot that he directed this. Audio commentary by Dan Curtis with actress Karen Black and co-screener William F. Nolan. So that's obviously from a previous release somewhere, as I don't think any of those folks are still with us. I could be wrong about that. I don't know that they're all departed. Audio commentary by film historian Richard Harlan Smith. One of the under-the-radar commentators, a guy that I really dig, and He does commentaries here and there, and they're always entertaining. They're always interesting. Check out Scalpel from Arrow. Really interesting gothic southern horror. He does a good commentary on that. Interviews with actor Anthony James and Lee Montgomery. Interview with screenwriter William F. Nolan. So it's actually got quite a bit of extra stuff for you to check out. But I just love this cast. I think this is a really fun cast. I'm a huge Oliver Reed fan. He's already getting to, I don't know, like if he's doing some of the stuff with Ken Russell here and there around this time, and he's really in the 60s, maybe his height, although 70s he's doing some really cool stuff like The Devils, which again, Ken Russell, that's on the Criterion Channel, does not have a great physical release, may not ever have a great physical release, but I do like that film, as dark as it is, and just Oliver Reed in general. But Karen Black, also a huge fan of her, and so it's neat to see this cast in a haunted house movie. A little bit of a slow burn, if you will, but enjoyable and fun if you're not aware of it. Worth checking out. That's all Burnt Offerings. Let's see here. You know what? Let's do some genre stuff. I was gonna run this later, but because it's so close to Burnt Offerings, I mean, just in terms of a genre, it comes out before then. This is House of the Long Shadows. Also a really great cast. This one. This comes out in 1983, so this is years later, but a remarkable cast. It'll go through it here in the bit. The High Priests of Horror, Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing. Those three, I don't think the three of them did too many movies together, as well as John Carradine, unite under the same gothic roof in the wickedly entertaining House of the Long Shadows, when a young novelist, Desi Arnaz Jr., spends a night at Bald Pate Manor to win the bet that he can turn out a best-selling thriller in 24 hours. He gets more than he wagers on. The grisly Grisbane clan arrives to celebrate the 40th anniversary of a ghoulish family secret, and their dinner party has murder on the menu. Lightning, thunder, torrential rain, clattering shutters, creaking doors, a locked attic, a sinister secret, murder. All the ingredients of the classic old dark house tale. I think that's another reason to run it right after Burnt Offerings. Come together with the screen's greatest gruesome foursome in this tongue-in-cheek chiller directed by cult filmmaker Pete Walker, who did Flesh and Blood Show, House of Whipcord. I'm trying to think of some other Pete Walkers. Frightmare? Did some of the Euro sleaze sort of. Co-starring Richard Todd and Sheila Keith. Oh, yeah, Frightmare. There you go. I vaguely remember, I don't know if it was Edgar Wright or Tarantino or somebody talking about this having some scarier moments in it for a comedy. I mean, sort of a comedy or a tongue-in-cheek, PG-rated movie. Maybe just something a little bit more intense than PG. I can't remember what it is, though, so have to rewatch to find out. Audio commentary by author Derek Paquette and director Pete Walker. Audio commentary by film historian David Del Val. He's usually on board with sort of a campy, again, tongue-in-cheek kind of film, and so if he's on board with it, that's usually a good sign for me. House of the Long Shadows Revisited, documentary with the cast and crew. Pete Walker's House of Horror, interview with director Pete Walker. I think this had all those features in its previous release, but did not have this slipcase. And there's no alternate artwork for this one, but you do get a nice slip for it now. But I mean, come on. Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and John Carradine? Sounds like something you got to watch to me. That's the House of Long Shadows. All right. Next up, again, in this sort of group of reissues here, we have The Thomas Crown Affair. Steve McQueen, Faye Dunaway, Norman Jewison directs. Famously has a really great opening sequence that is multi-layer split screen, which was kind of in vogue. This is 68. It became sort of in vogue around the mid-60s. I want to say Grand Prix has a similar, like, not just one, but like multi-planed split screen happening. I think that's kind of fun. But yeah, this is a sort of a heist movie. but it's funny. I was just listening to Nat Segalov's book on the Towering Inferno, and he was talking about, he goes in deep on Steve McQueen on various things, but they were saying, Steve McQueen didn't like characters that talked a lot, and that this character is like pushing the boundaries of the kind of thing he liked to do, although I think the film did all right. Every crime has a personality, something like the mind that planned it, says Vicki Anderson, Faye Dunaway, the sleek insurance investigator trying to figure out the intellect behind a bank robbery so stunning it has Boston's finest completely baffled. Sophisticated, handsome Thomas Crown, Steve McQueen, has only one worry: what persona will he take on tomorrow? But when the genius rogue pulls off the crime of the century bank heist and finds himself pitted against a nemesis as powerful as he is, the devil-may-care attitude hurls him into the edge-of-your-seat game of intrigue and suspense. Thomas Crown Affair has all the dazzling personality of the intriguing crime it portrays. The great Norman Jewison, in the heat of the night, directs this classic sexy thriller featuring top-notch cinematography by Haskell Wexler. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Who shot The Conversation, among many others. I'm thinking of Medium Cool, of course. And score by Michel Legrand, Summer of 42. This is a really loaded, nice addition here, because I think this came out from Twilight Time, and I'll tell you why. It has an audio commentary by director Norman Jewison, which is great. I love to have the actual filmmaker involved, but this is what I'm getting at. Audio commentary by film historians Lem Dobbs and Nick Redman. So I seem to remember it being one that they were with Twilight Time, and so that seems like it's ported over from the Twilight Time disc. An interview with director Norman Jewison, interview with title designer Pablo Ferro. So that's that famous split screen thing, so it'd be cool to hear his thoughts on designing that. And then Three's Company in 1967 on the set featurette with cast and crew. So archival EPK, would be EPK kind of material also. But yeah, so Thomas Crown Affair, nice new slipcase edition. It doesn't say anything about a new scan, but if you're a Steve McQueen fan, maybe this one's getting a little less love at the moment. Like, I'm not feeling like people are talking about it quite as much, but I'm a big Norman Jewison fan. Okay, another one from the 70s. This one, a big sort of critical Oscar winner of 3 Oscars. Best Actor for Bruce Dern, if I recall. Best Actress for Jane Fonda. No, I'm sorry. Did Bruce Dern win, or did Jon Voight win? I can't remember now. I think it was Dern. Best Screenplay also. This is Hal Ashby's Coming Home from 1978. Post-Vietnam film, directed by Ashby, one of his big commercial and critical successes in a string of just incredible films that he made in the 1970s. He follows this up with Being There. He does Harold and Maude prior to this, and The Landlord. And yeah, he is one of my favorites. And his influence can be felt to this day, even on something like, The Last Detail is the other one I was trying to think of. That being a big influence on The Holdovers. Alexander Payne acknowledged that Hal Ashby's Last Detail was a movie that they watched, and if you watch The Holdovers, you can see that influence, definitely, I think, in a good way. So anyway, this is perhaps the most powerful picture ever made about the shattering aftermath of the Vietnam War. Coming Home won 3 Oscars for 1978. Best Actress Jane Fonda, Best Actor Jon Voight, my bad, and Best Original Screenplay. And the screenplay is by, let's see here, Waldo Salt, of course, and Robert C. Jones, the Waldo Salt Award. Haskell Wexler on the DP here, so a nice little connection I didn't intend there. Let's see here. It is a heartbreaking examination of a critical period in our nation's history and an uncompromising, unforgettable film, extraordinarily rendered by director Hal Ashby. When Marine Captain Bob Hyde, Bruce Dern, leaves for Vietnam, his wife Sally, Jane Fonda, volunteers at a local hospital. There she meets Luke Martin, that's Jon Voight, a former sergeant whose war injury has left him a paraplegic, Embittered with rage and filled with frustration, Luke finds new hope and confidence through his growing intimacy with Sally. The relationship also transforms Sally's feelings about life, love, and the horrors of war. And obviously, war was a big deal to Jane Fonda. She was very vocal, anti-war, and took some heat for it, for sure. So this is a big movie for her, a big passion project kind of movie. Let's see here. And when wounded and disillusioned, Sally's husband returns home. All three must grapple with the full impact of a brutal, distant war that has changed their lives forever. The superb supporting cast includes Penelope Milford, Robert Carradine, and Robert Ginty. And this has an audio commentary. This is obviously from way back, with actors Jon Voight, Bruce Dern, and with cinematographer Haskell Wexler. And then a coming back home featurette, kind of a making of thing, and Hal Ashby Man Out of Time featurette, which is really cool as well, talking about Ashby specifically. But yeah, one of his big critical, like I said, and commercial hits. He was an offbeat guy, Ashby, and so it's not all his films were that kind of a commercial success. And not a lot of them got this kind of recognition. So very cool to have this in a nice slipcase edition. Again, this has been issued before, but this is a new version in terms of the presentation. Next up in the reissues, we have The Big Country. This is a really great Western from William Wyler. Incredible cast, as you can see on the front here. Gregory Peck, Gene Simmons, Carol Baker, Charlton Heston, Burl Ives. But that's not all. There's more. It's a really special movie and one that I'm a big fan of. In fact, I love some other Wyler films, but this one is really near the top for me personally. It's just one of those Westerns. The cast is so strong, and I'm a big fan of Westerns. This is from 1958, 50s Westerns in general. So William Wyler, director of Roman Holiday, Ben-Hur, The Children's Hour, Best Years of Our Lives is probably his most beloved film. But he did The Heiress, which I can't help but spout this stuff off when it occurs. But The Heiress is a huge influence on Scorsese, and specifically a big one on his latest movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. Wuthering Heights, How to Steal a Million, Funny Girl. He's a really interesting and accomplished director. But again, The Big Country for me, one of the best he ever did. In addition to that cast I mentioned, we have Chuck Connors, Roddy McDowell. I feel like there's a couple other faces in here I'm blanking on. Charles Bickford. From William Wyler, legendary director of Mrs. Miniver, another one. Best Years of Our Lives and Ben-Hur comes this epic Western featuring an incredible cast of screen legends: Gregory Peck, Gene Simmons, Charlton Heston, Carol Baker, and Burl Ives in his Oscar-winning performance. Best actor in a supporting role, 1958. I love Burl Ives, by the way. As a singer and an actor, I think he's just fantastic. This bold, sweeping tale centers on a ship's captain, Gregory Peck, who ventures west to find a hotbed of jealousy, hatred, and dangerous rivalries. As the reluctant hero, he is thrust into the maelstrom. He must summon all of his resolve to save not only his life, but also the life of the woman he loves. The Big Country is an action-packed adventure that triumphs as a work of art. The film's legendary, rousing score by Jerome Moras was nominated for an Oscar. A stellar casting also includes Charles Bickford and Chuck Connors. But yeah, almost 3 hours long. It's 166 minutes, so just shy of that, and just really one of those great epics. I'm not always a fan of the epics of this period, but this one is truly spectacular stuff. Another summation of the plot: retired wealthy sea captain Jim McKay arrives in the Old West, where he becomes embroiled in a feud between his future father-in-law, Major Terrell, and that is who plays Terrell? Charles Bickford, and the rough and lawless Hannesseys over a valuable patch of land. And so the Hannesseys I'm trying to remember who they are. Well, Burl Ives is sort of the head one. So yeah, he gets in. It's like a range war kind of movie, you know, like Open Range or something. But yeah, really great epic, incredible cast. This and widescreen 235 widescreen, beautiful. Audio commentary by film historian Sir Christopher Frayling, directed by William Wyler, documentary. So you get a nice documentary on Wyler, covering obviously not just this film, but some of his other works. Interviews with Cecilia Peck, Carrie Peck, and Tony Peck. I think they're his kids. Gregory's, that is. Interview with Fraser Heston, again, kids. And an interview with Catherine Wyler. Fun in the Country featurette. Larry Cohen on Chuck Connors. I like that they included that. So this is a nice special edition. This one does have alternate artwork that goes back to, I can't remember if this was the original issue or if it looked like the slipcase, but always nice when you can flip that artwork around, get something else going. So this is The Big Country from William Wyler, Great Western reissue. And then just a couple more of these. We have Witness for the Prosecution. This one's from 1957, and it is directed by the great Billy Wilder. And another solid cast here. We have Tyrone Power, Marlena Dietrich, Charles Lawton. And I remember this being a really solid thriller from Billy Wilder, and one that I don't hear people talk about as much. Again, this has come out before. Screen legends Tyrone Power, Marlena Dietrich, and Charles Lawton star in this splendidly entertaining courtroom classic about a man on trial for a wealthy widow's murder after he suspiciously profits from her will. His only hope for acquittal is his wife's testimony, but his airtight alibi shatters when she reveals some shocking secrets of her own. In order to maximize the film's effect upon its audience, producers kept the set carefully guarded to prevent its crucial plot twists from leaking to the public. Directed by the brilliant Billy Wilder. Stalag 17 and The Apartment are listed here. Those both have 4Ks from Kino. Scripted by Wilder and Harry Kurnitz. A Shot in the Dark, which is one of my favorite Pink Panther movies, which was actually, I think, a play, like a farcical play that was adapted into a Pink Panther movie, but I still think it's one of the most fun. And maybe it's because it comes from previous material. But anyway, it's a fun and funny movie. Not that this movie's funny. And based on the hit London play by mystery master Agatha Christie. That's why this is so good. This thunderbolt of a film crackles with emotional electricity and continues to keep movie lovers riveted until the final mesmerizing frame, boasting 6 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Director, Actor, Lawton, and Supporting Actress. Elsa Lanchester is also in this. So based on Agatha Christie, directed by Billy Wilder, really great cast, courtroom drama. I don't know. It's not going to be everybody's thing. Maybe you're not a courtroom drama person. You know, I get that. But I have a weird attraction to courtroom dramas. There's something about... I think I've said it before here. I took mock trial in high school. And so that gave me a sense of the legal process, which I find, like military naval strategy, something that is, for me anyway, kind of cinematic in terms of how you get certain things into the record. As you in the naval strategy, just as an aside, is something else I like. But yeah, there's a strategy to this sort of cat and mouse to the trial, like getting things in, discrediting witnesses, all those things. It's always been fascinating to me. So this is a really solid courtroom drama from Mr. Billy Wilder, and no alternate artwork, but now you have a slipcase for it. And this has audio commentary by film historian Joseph McBride, author of Billy Wilder, Dancing on the Edge, and Billy Wilder and Volker Schlondorf discuss Witness for the Prosecution. So that's a super cool feature to have Wilder himself in an interview talking about the movie. I remember really digging that. But yeah, Witness for the Prosecution. And I think the last of these reissues is The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming. This is also I want to say Norman Jewison film. An incredible cast here. Kyle Reiner, Eva Marie Saint, Alan Arkin, Brian Keith, Jonathan Winters, Theodore Bickel, and Paul Ford are all listed here. And this is a what's his, Jack Davis art, I think. The guy who did Mad Magazine, he did Long Goodbye posters. I'm pretty sure this is Jack Davis art. I've always loved posters that Jack Davis did. So that's just a little something from me. But when a sightseeing Soviet commander runs his submarine aground off the New England coast, the crew's attempts to find a boat to dislodge them almost start World War III. In his first major film role, Alan Arkin leads an all-star cast including Carl Reiner, Eva Marie Saint, Brian Keith, and Jonathan Winters in this uproarious Cold War comedy classic. Russian Lieutenant Rozanov, that's Arkin, and his crew hit the beaches of Massachusetts unaware of the panic they're about to start. Despite the Russians' harmless intentions, the folks in town think a full-scale Soviet invasion has been launched. It's almost like this is part of the inspiration for 1941 or something, although that supposedly is based on something that really, I don't know. I'm not going to get into 1941 history right now, but if you're a fan of Spielberg's 1941, this will maybe seem a little familiar. Despite the Russians' harmless intentions, full-scale Soviet invasion has been launched. What's worse, their police chief, Brian Keith, has left his hysterical assistant, Jonathan Winters, in charge, and the one man who knows the truth, Carl Reiner, is only stirring up more chaos. The great Norman Jewison, in The Great Heat of the Night and Thomas Crown Affair, directs this riotously funny film with a script by William Rose, who wrote It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Nominated for 4 Academy Awards for 66, Best Director, Jewison, Best Actor, Arkin, Best Adapted Screenplay, Rose, and Best Film Editing by Hal Ashby and Terry Williams. Did Hal Ashby cut... I can't remember if he worked with Jewison. I don't know if he cut... I know he did Cincinnati Kid, but I guess he did this one too in 66. So cool that we bring it back to Hal Ashby here with this. But yeah, I remember this being pretty goofy fun, and I'm a huge Alan Arkin fan, and actually a fan of almost the entire cast that's mentioned here. Eva Marie Saint from North by Northwest, Carl Reiner, obviously, Brian Keith, who I first saw in The Parent Trap, probably, but I've come to appreciate his noir performances and a bunch of other stuff he did prior to that. Yeah, no, this is interesting. And I didn't know that it makes sense that it's William Rose. It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. It has that kind of energy, and it has Jonathan Winters, and he's in that too. So that's fascinating to me. Is Carl Reiner in? He should be. I think he is. Anyway, and it's in a Mad, 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 Mad World is what I was thinking. Audio commentary by film historians Michael Schlesinger and Mark Evanier. And The Russians Are Coming to Hollywood featurette with Norman Jewison, another interview with him. So yeah, this has a nice slipcase on it, and that Jack Davis artwork, I think. But that's it. That's a bunch of reissues available now from Kino Lorber. I have more stuff to talk about from Kino and Kino adjacent labels coming very soon. But thank you for the moment for listening, and I will talk to you in the near future. Bye-bye.